Hello and welcome to Seeking Heavenly Truth, another experience. Let me turn this freaking music down. Okay, hey, I'm your host, Tamara Caulder Richardson, and I think the music is still going. This totally cracks me up. Okay, good. Now you can hear me. So I am the host, your host today, and we are having tea with Tamara, which we're talking about anything that's over tea that's spiritual and about life and the afterlife and everything else. And I have a wonderful sidekick and guest host who is the author of God Took My Clothes, David Suich. So great to have you here, David.
That's good to be back, Tamara. Good afternoon.
Yeah, afternoon. And I love your dashiki. I love your rolling with that. I have a few, and you were shocked that I knew what that was.
Yes, I was. It's an African shirt for those who don't know. You can buy them on Amazon. You just search under the term dashiki.
Yeah, they're comfortable. I have long tunics.
Oh, yeah.
And I sleep in it because it's just not binding. It's so relaxing. And I walk around the house, and I look very groovy. So I have very cool like robes and stuff with angel wings and really cool because I feel like that in your own home, you should be your own person and you should just let the real you come out. Although honestly, we should do that all the time.
Oh, absolutely. And these are great for the hot and humid Texas weather. They're very lightweight, very cool. So anybody in the hot climate, you need to get a dashiki.
Yeah, it gets hot here too, and I find that they're very comfortable and relaxing. And I think I was telling you pre-show, and thanks for being patient. We're starting a little bit later, so thank you so much. Pre-show, I was telling you that I bought my husband Clay this beautiful long Muslim tunic robe and a light baby blue to kind of match his eyes. And then I got him sandals, and he opened it up, and it was short sleeve, but it was long and it had the pockets. And he said, "You're dressing me like Jesus," and I went, "It's true." But I said, "It's comfortable." He goes, "It is comfortable, when you just want to throw something on." So, I don't like binding clothes sometimes. I think they're constricting, and I think it's important, in our social order that you wear clothes. But but honestly, I want to build an 8-foot fence. Seriously, I'm not kidding. A solid fence. And have a small nudist camp with me and my dogs in the back because and you know what, if they want to Google that, good for them. I mean, because they're probably not missing anything, they're not seeing much. So but I was like that as a kid. I just always walked around half naked or with a bathing suit or nothing. I think that I love clothes and I love fashion, but I think that sometimes your skin needs to breathe.
Oh, absolutely. And you'd probably like this place. Of course, you put me in a state of thinking a little bit because I never thought about the Google satellite views that people can see.
Oh, yeah.
We have an outdoor shower right over there, and I shower every day outdoors, even when it's cold, even when it's below freezing. I've showered in that outdoor shower. I got in the habit of it years ago, and I just like being outdoors, and it's wonderful to shower under the sun and with the trees and the green and the birds singing.
It's funny. We're admitting here, we're not even 5 minutes in, and we're both admitting to being nudist, totally the same way. It just, I don't really necessarily want to be that way with other people and go to some nudist camp and see people, people splinging around. I don't really care about that. But that's kind of gross. But in terms of, oh yeah, we have like a little back end porch area and we have a jacuzzi, and I like walking around naked. I mean, I walk around naked around the house all the time, and Clay, stop doing that because all the curtains are open. But I mean, I just feel like your skin needs to breathe. It really helps with relaxing. It's hard to be serious when you're walking around. You just feel kind of silly. So I've always been that way as a little kid. I just never grew out of it.
Yeah, I was never used to being nude outside, or I mean that would be like, oh, I don't even like changing inside my house in front of my partner. That's the way I was. And of course, after 4 Burning Man events, and for those of you who don't know, it's a big art and music festival in the desert, and some people are nude, and most people wear clothes. Some people wear very little clothes, and there's no place to shower there. You're there 10 days, and you got to shower outside. So
Oh, I
I
didn't know
showered
that.
outside, there's people walking by the main street as I'm showering, wave good morning. And it's amazing how fast you get used to your body. We human beings have this weird
Mm,
thing about nudity. It's like there's a
mhm.
dog walking down the street. Nobody says, oh my God, it's a naked dog. Put some clothes on. Well, no, that's just what a dog looks like. It's just what a human being looks like. We have this weird thing with nudity in our culture. We really do.
It's really true. I think I have a very European kind of thing. I'm more European about that. I mean, I don't look like if someone's naked. Oh, they're sexual. Honestly, they could be really ugly. I mean, but I don't really look at it. I look at it like that everyone's beautiful, depending, in their own way, in a non-sexual way, because that's what God created, and that's what you got. And we're just lucky to be here. But yeah, I don't have that on. I don't know. I don't have those things attached to me. I think also I went to art school and I used to draw part of the program. I went to a full year art school and I also took, my concentration was marketing, advertising, and design, which is why hopefully my stuff looks good. But anyway, I mean, I'm so happy I finally get to use it for myself because I used it for years for corporate clients, which was fine. But it's really kind of special to use it for myself and on this channel and for you guys. But I would draw nude models. We had, for 2 years, I did figure drawing and we would have different nude models come in and they would get in the middle of this pedestal. This was totally not in the script to talk about nude people. But they would get, well, this is why you need to have.
About 5 minutes in.
5 minutes in. This is why you need tea with Tamara. Oh, look, I got a little mermaid. Mine's mermaid today.
Oh,
I love mermaids. And it says, live the life you imagine. Woohoo, and I am.
All right, what kind of tea are you drinking this morning?
This is green tea mango.
Green tea mango. Okay, I'm drinking a strawberry blackberry tea. It's very good.
Ooh, yummy. Well,
no more cola tea.
Well, that's cool. Did Lydia have something to do with that? You need proper tea.
I have proper tea. For those who saw the last tea with Tamara, she asked me what kind of tea I was drinking. I didn't want to fess up that I was drinking soda to wake up, so I said it was soda flavored tea.
No,
that's look for soda flavored tea. There's no such thing. There's probably people out there looking for soda flavored tea.
Oh, that's so sweet. Adriana's here. Hey, Adriana. And
hi, Adriana. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. She's a love leader, and nice to see you here. Let's see, channels a lot of here. Oh, I appreciate that. Well, I think that things happen for a reason. This tea with Tamara was told to me 2 days in a row by Spirit, and they told me that I keep bringing other people 75%. They want to switch it and be 75% me and programs and spiritual lessons because they want to use me. Well, okay. So we can't use you if you're letting other people talk. And I went, it's like I had never thought about that in my life. Mm-hmm. So with this is a way that, I know, David, you're also a channel member, but you're also a friend and you're a professional speaker. And I trust you immensely. Even talk about naked people. I know it won't get too weird, but it already has. But but I think part of being here is laughing and enjoying this world and having a laugh and looking back at our crazy experiences, like you're saying, Burning Man and people showering, go, that was normal. And then I look and I'm going to tell you a funny story in art classes. So I'm in college and we have different models that come in and it sounds, it's embarrassing, blah, blah, blah. And it was the first couple of times, but you've got about 28, 35 people in the room and you're all in a circle drawing this person. Now they had all kinds. They had one guy who was a bodybuilder. Now he never took his briefs off, but he had the muscles and everything, like a little Arnold Schwarzenegger. And that was fascinating. He was hard to draw because you anatomically had to be correct, with muscles and everything. And then they had a fat lady come in and she was like, she didn't care. She was fat. She's like, let it all hang out. I was like, okay. And that was weird too, because people just did a lot of loopity loops, drawing. You're like, no, I know it looks like a bunch of round stuff, but actually you need to be correct. So we would turn it around midway through and the teacher would critique it. So at some point you were more interested in getting it right and not be embarrassed how crappy your art was. And so, there was one in particular, they walk in, they have robes. It's just like you'd see on TV. They have robes and they drop it. And so, but then, after the first couple seconds it's fine. And then you're worried about your drawing because everybody's going to see it. And then you kind of get competitive and you want yours to look better. And so this woman walked in and she was gorgeous and she had a robe on. She looked a mix between black and white and Hispanic. I'm not sure. She almost looked like someone like, I don't know, we call from like Louisiana, Mississippi area, New Orleans. And she had naturally curly hair. I mean, she was just stunning. She had greenish eyes and she looked really a beautiful, beautiful face and all that. She walked in and there was this African American guy. So I've never seen a black person turn red. Lord have mercy. She was gorgeous. And I looked it over up at him and this is the only time I've seen anyone embarrassed and he turned bright red. I didn't know it was possible, but he did. And I felt kind of bad for him, but it's kind of awkward sometimes the first couple minutes and then you're fine. But I guess because I was exposed to different things being in art school, I would go to art parties and people would be half dressed in these crazy outfits like Christmas tree, a topless Christmas tree, and with like Christmas. This is all very telling. This is all very telling, isn't it? So these days I am very calm. What would you say?
I said our R-rated intro to the show today.
Oh goodness. Well, I'm really calm these days, but yeah, I used to go to art parties all the time and they would have themes and we would dress like the theme, like Winter Wonderland. And then I would, people would spray paint their bodies. They would paint their bodies. It's starting to sound like Burning Man, isn't it? But
yes.
I did a lot of things like that. Halloween was nuts. People would go absolutely, it was like cosplay before cosplay, and so they would dress in whole themes, movie themes or whatever it would be. So I think that it's funny we're talking about self-love. And I think part of today's topic, self-love, when to give and when to receive is, really when you receive joy is we want to justify it, but it's over dumb stuff. Mm. It really is. I mean, we're kind of talking about joyous things that are dumb, but we like, right?
Yes.
And comfort things like, whether it's your favorite tea or your favorite whatever. And we don't want to rely too much on food or drinks or any of that kind of thing. But I do think it's a social thing and that we just like chicken noodle soup, makes people feel like, well, I'm going to get better now because I have my chicken noodle soup. I think that there's certain things that ground us to this world. And, and sometimes there's simple things that we do that we take ourselves back. And I think even though we laugh about it, I think that when I do things like that, when I have a Richardson nudist camp, when I do that, it makes me feel like, screw the world. I'm doing my own thing. I don't care. I think that's what that is. It takes a part of me back. And I bet you tons of people do. I have lady friends that do that all the time. They walk around the house like that when they're getting ready.
Well, I think part of the benefit, at least I got from being comfortable with my own body, my own nudity. I mean, at first it's super uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And it was amazing how quickly I got used to it. I've been to maybe 15 or 20 Burning Man events. They have smaller regional ones, and there's always some degree of nudity. And there's so many people. I mean, we have a society that presents these perfect Hollywood images on TV and advertisements of these perfect bodies. And if you look at older paintings, that's not the way it was. I mean, older paintings, from you see in a museum, they had a more realistic view of humans. And so people have this idea that they've got to look perfect. They have this idea that they're not attractive. A lot of people don't know how attractive they are. They really don't. I mean, I have a friend.
You're right.
Society would say that she's 50 pounds overweight or something like that. And she's a very attractive woman with an attractive body. And she says, oh, no guy's going to want to date me, blah, blah, because I'm not in a. So I pulled up YouTube, and I typed in big, beautiful woman. And we clicked on the first video. I said, look at the thumbs up. 87,000 likes. So there's a lot of men that are going to find attractive. Mm-hmm. And attractiveness is really beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? Mm-hmm. Especially, for the kind of people that would listen to a channel like this. When you have a lot of interior beauty in your heart, that comes out. I mean, it comes out and makes you look physically more attractive. There's probably some listeners right now who've had the experience of, you meet somebody maybe when you're dating or something that was super
Mhm.
attractive, and you got to know their personality, which was not so
Which
attractive. And,
sucked.
and physically, they look less
Mhm.
attractive to you, or the opposite, somebody who looks sort of
Mhm.
average. And when you get to know them, get to know their heart and their personality and their kindness, they look more attractive to you. I mean, I've
Mhm.
experienced that where you physically see an attractiveness that's coming from their heart and soul.
No, I totally agree, and I think that's a really good point. That you would be surprised how many, because I'm a woman, so the women tell me how many times that they don't think they're attractive. There was a lady that I went to college with, and she was a roommate of mine, and we had the first I don't know 2 or 3 years I lived in a all female dormitory. Of course, guys were sneaking out all hours, but we did,
Yes, that
and
was the first thought that entered my head, by the way, when you said all female dormitory. I thought, man, I wish I would have had one of those in my university.
well, there were guys that were there that they snuck them in and out. Like after 9 o'clock or 10, they weren't supposed to be there. Yeah, right. Anyway, but I went to East Carolina University, but I'm sure it's like that everywhere. But anyway, so I had a roommate. I eventually got a apartment, and it was new. It was nice, and I put my looking for a roommate on the main student bulletin board, and this girl wanted a room. She was really quiet and reserved, but she was really stunning. She really thought she was ugly, and she was French Canadian. She had this beautiful. It was like a dark olive skin, these really dark eyes. She had coal black hair. It was naturally curly. She did everything in the whole world to straighten it. I don't know why. I guess you want something you don't have. I don't know, but people want curly hair want straight hair, vice versa. Anyway,
Mhm.
and she I don't know where this came from. I mean, I don't know where this cycle, like, because I'm going, you're like really pretty, and I'm like, she really thought she wasn't. So then you get into this whole, what do they call it, dysmorphic, where people think things that aren't so. But
Mhm.
then I've seen people that are really hideous. They think they're guys too that are not, I mean, really, and they're like cocky, and I'm like, but not good. I'm like, whew. So, it really has to do with our mental state. I just think a good, healthy attitude about how we present ourselves, to the public, and who we are is something we should be mindful about. And if we present ourselves in love, there are people that are going to always misinterpret who we are. But I can't help that. You know what I mean? I can't help that.
That's
But
on
they're in
them.
us, right?
Yeah.
But if we come in a place that from our hearts and with love, and I think that, especially in life, I think that what I find attractive, and again, Americans are weird. I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about just attractive personalities, engaging, um, are people that come from the heart and that are genuine. And that is not hard. That's hard to find.
Oh yeah.
That is not an easy thing because so many people are afraid of being vulnerable. And I know it comes up in readings a lot, this whole self love. And the way that I look at it is that imagine if we were like 90 something years old and we were on our way out. We would be reflecting now uh, at certain parts in our life how good we looked, how we were younger. We would be more appreciative. And I just think that, you know, if you have your health, you have people that love you. I've seen ordinary looking people that, have done things to improve themselves. Makeup goes a long way. Haircuts, outfits, but I think it has the core of it to do with being proud of who you are, that you're here, and let that exude and come out. I think the most unattractive thing, and if I had to say as a female, a most unattractive thing, really in a male or female, would be someone who whines a lot and has no self confidence. I think it's really, real. It's really boring to me. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Poor me, poor that, because it's saying that they're broken within and they're not looking at the world.
Oh yeah. When I was in my sales job for many years, we had a saying, often mistaken, never in doubt. You had to project an image of self-confidence. Otherwise you would lose the customer. They wouldn't believe it. And really, that's a big issue in our society today. There are so many people who don't love themselves, who have a problem with self-respect. And I think it comes from the fact that, a lot of people have trouble being authentic. Now, I don't like that word because it doesn't really describe how we're supposed to be. So authentic means you kind of just be yourself and act the way you would if you're by yourself or with your best friend, without thinking about what others are going to say. And that's not what most people do. Most people become a chameleon. You go to church, you do the church talk or whatever. When you're with your friends, you kind of talk like they do. And the reason is because we fear rejection. We fear that if we're ourselves and I show the world who I am, I don't conform to the mainstream cultural ideas, I'm going to be rejected. And human connection is so important. It's, if you don't have important and meaningful relationships where you connect with other human beings, you don't have a life. And so people will do and pretend to be or hide whatever aspects of themselves they're embarrassed about just to be accepted. And that's not the way to go.
Well, I think a lot of us start out like that, especially like preteen, teenager, and it can go through life that we're trying to fit in or trying to understand who we are. But at some point, the great freedom about being older is you don't care.
Yes, that's one of the wonderful things about getting older is to just stop caring what other people think.
Yeah, it's really, and the other thing is, if someone has a different viewpoint of who they think I might be or what have you, I don't try to really change that. I'm like, okay, then, because why should I try to convince someone that I know who that I am? And I'm like, and people are going to think what they want to anyway. It was funny. It was actually Jesus that told me when setting up this channel, he said, I want you to understand labels. And I said, labels, I label other people, or he said, labels and judgment. He goes, not really. And he said, he wanted me to see things from different perspectives. He said that when we label ourselves, it limits ourselves. And that, if we label, it stumps our spiritual growth. And that might even fall into areas like dogma, right? That's a label, right? Because we're labeling like, oh, well, we can only think it's this way or that way. And instead of asking why, people just go along with stuff. I ask why about everything. I've been this way since I was born and I haven't stopped. And I still do that. Why? Mm-hmm. Why do things have to be this way? Why do things have to be that way? Because if we want to have a better world and a utopia, why can't we shift that into, a better way? And why do I have to agree with things that I think that aren't helpful to most people?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my thing when I was younger was, I still have it today, is the idea of authority. It's like, okay, so there's this person telling me what to do. Why should I listen to them? Who gave them, what, do they have a greater intellect, greater insight? Why are they qualified to tell me what to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Adriana's making a comment on that. But I mean, at some point, people have families, they're grown. The whole point we're here is to be ourselves. In order to be ourselves, we do need to have self-love. And I think that, last show we talked about, I still think it's fun talking about this crazy stuff. Adriana's going, why is it as an Aries thing 24/7? What is she talking about? I know we're both Aries. I'm born right on the, what do you call it? The cusp, right on the first day. So I have a lot of Pisces. I'm an artist. I'm quiet, but then I'm like real extrovert. So, but it's a lot of work being extrovert all the time. It's exhausting. And quite honestly, I think people like me are fun, but it's tiring for me. To be honest, yeah. I like someone quieter, like Clay, because not that he's quiet, but he's more balanced. Although Adriana's fun, but I'm just saying it is. it's like two fire signs, like bam, it's fun, but I get tired after a while because it just kind of jacks me up. But getting back to self-love, the last time we talked, we were talking about, and I want you to recap if you could, because I thought it was really important, and then we kind of ran out of time, and I felt it was important. First of all, we learn from people's journey, and you had mentioned that you got to this state where you were selfish, you didn't like certain sectors of certain people, and that totally turned around, and to the point you were giving and helping and giving and helping, and then kind of where you are now and things you've learned along the way. Because I think that self-love comes with balance, and I don't know about you, I'm still learning that balance.
Yeah. So self-love, I mean, Adrienne will tell you this because she really knows the Bible probably better than anybody I know. But you know what Jesus said, love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. A lot of people miss that last phrase, as yourself. I mean, if you don't love yourself, it's awfully hard to have a well of love to give to others. So that's probably the most important part. And okay, recapping kind of what I went through. I did have some prejudices as a young man. I was kind of racist and sexist and all that. But even as a child, I was always giving. My parents told me that, and I don't recall this. This is just what they told me. They said when I was a child, they'd give each of me and my brother and sister, the three of us, a candy bar, and they would sort of test us. And then, oh, can I have a piece? And they said, out of the three of us, I was the only one they could ask me for another piece and another piece and another piece that was all gone, and I had nothing for myself. Now, I brought that attitude up into my adulthood. So when I had prayed about, I was living in California back in the 80s, and back then there was a big influx from Mexico immigration. And I didn't like it. I heard this language I didn't understand, and this culture of people who are different. And we as human beings tend to fear things that are different. And I was prejudiced against Hispanics, and I knew it wasn't good. I prayed to God. I said, if you can take this away from me, do it. And I heard, in my mind, you got to learn Spanish. I hated that language. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So I half-heartedly did it. Then 3 years later, through a series of circumstances, I got brought to this orphanage. Now, I didn't like kids either, but that weekend when we pulled into the orphanage, I fell in love with the Mexican people and the culture and the children. Of course, my wife is Mexican. She doesn't speak any English. So I speak Spanish all day long in the house, the language I used to hate. So God can transform anybody. Doesn't matter how bad you think you are, God can transform you, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and especially if you open your heart and you say, please help me to understand. It may be a while that God transforms you. But I think I told you my experience many years ago, maybe 25, 30 years ago. I mean, I just wasn't, it was because the household I grew up in was very narcissistic. Okay. Not a good role model. And so I remember being in the elevator, and there was an Hispanic family. They were tiny people. And I was looking, and I realized they were terrified and frightened. And I looked at them, and I realized I just stopped. Something took, I don't know, it just in my heart, I stopped, and I realized I was going to just overlook them like they didn't even exist in the elevator with me. It was 4 of them. Mother, father, children, and I'm going. And then I looked at them, and I saw the kindest, most purest hearts and how sweet. And then I just looked over and I nodded, and I genuinely said hello. And they were so touched. And I got off the elevator and I went, what the F is wrong with me? I need to change how I look at people. But because I grew up in such an unhealthy, I had to relearn things from a horrible childhood of being around so many narcissists that things rub off on you. And so it's sad because a lot of my family's still that way. And I'm not, now my brother, I think, has moved on a little bit. He's not that way. He married an Hispanic lady, and they have a child. She's great. Everything's great. But there's some that are still like that. But we have the choice whether to spiritually grow or stay the same. I feel like that when you spiritually don't grow and you block yourself, usually your body gets sick. That's just an
Oh yeah.
observation. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think a lot of emotional, spiritual blockages or imbalances or dysfunctions come out as in the physical. I believe that's what happened in my case. I had worsening tendonitis for 20 years that all of a sudden in my 50s just disappeared. Well, that's not natural. There's other things going on, and you see your body, your spirit doesn't have any other way of getting your attention. So if we're blocking things or refusing to make a change or come back into balance, our whole last episode was about service to self, service to others, and there's a lot more takers than givers, and so the givers are really overstressed in this world right now. And if one is out of balance with anything, whether it's work versus social life, or taking care of yourself versus service to humanity, if one is out of balance in anything, that
Yes.
can manifest in the physical. And there are some spiritual gurus that say the vast majority of physical ailments, other than the case when you break a bone or something like that, but the kind of thing I had, tendonitis or these aches and pains, that's a lot of time our spirit trying to get our attention, saying, hey, something's wrong, a change has to be made. And I tried every medical thing in the book for my my condition, and nothing worked. And then as soon as I changed my life and got it back into balance, it just evaporated. I couldn't walk more than a quarter of a mile, and I walked 5 miles yesterday. I'm doing that 2-3 days a week now. So yeah, it comes out in the physical. Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
wow. We've got Charles here with us, and he said there was a lady who helped my spirit my knee the other day. That's beautiful. Of course, we can do that
There you
ourselves
go.
too. Sometimes we need help. Sometimes we're in a state that we need another person helping with that. That's true. Sometimes you do. Sometimes, I mean, I've definitely been to people like I've been to Fiona Van Rensburg. My energy was all screwy, and I went to her. I was like, I just couldn't sort it out, and it did. So sometimes we do need help with things. Adriana did give us that. Not that this is a if you're religious, non-religious, any whatever, alien, human, you're welcome here. I'm just putting this. Okay, so this isn't like per se a Christian channel, although I love Jesus a lot. But this is Matthew 22, 37 through 39. It says, and he said to him, have love for your Lord with all, love God with all your heart and with your soul and your mind. And this is the first and greatest rule. And then the second one was love your neighbor like yourself. So
Thank you, Adriana.
and so, do we do that? Not really. I mean, that's not true. There's some beautiful people that do. I remember when I had this client years ago, and it was Italian food manufacturer, Stefano's, and my company, Caulder Design Communication, created all their promotional materials, their boxing. We work with the FDA, getting their packaging. You have to have certain specifications that on the package at certain places and all this stuff. Anyway, I was going over to their facility, and they would always upset me because you'd work a contract with them. You'd have a contract for X amount of things, but they would always hold off paying you the last bit unless you threw extra stuff in for free. It drove me bananas. But the guy was so good at it. Like it was so tiring. And so I was leaving it and I wasn't thinking right. And I pulled out in front of a car and I totaled my car. I wasn't in a major highway. I was just in a side road, but I totaled my car and I didn't know what happens because the bags deployed, and so it was so sweet. This cute little tiny Hispanic guy pulled me out of the car and said, "You okay? You okay?" And it was like, it was so precious. Like he didn't even think. He just jumped right in there. He probably thought the car was going to explode, and it would just really touch my heart. And that's the kind of love we need to have for people. We need and that bravery, to be able to just jump in and help a neighbor. I've done that. I do that with animals too. I'll jump out in the middle of a busy highway and grab a dog.
Well, I mean, if you think about that whole thing, there's something called the mirror neuron, or I think it's a similar function in the human brain is the vagus nerve. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I'm sure there's people listening who know. But it is something that's found in higher mammals, chimpanzees, the great apes, that kind of thing, and human beings. And when we see another human being suffering, we feel it, right? You feel it in your heart. You see something happen, you go, oh, and you feel it. Or when you see another human being performing an act of love, we get this feeling of well up, kind of teared up and oh, how's it? So if you think about it, we're not the fastest animals. We're not the strongest. We don't have big claws or anything like that. Well, why have we become the dominant species on the planet? Well, one of the big key issues is this connection we have. When you help another human being, it makes you feel good. When you harm another human being, there's a part of you that feels guilty. We cooperate with each other. It is the key to our survival as a species. Without cooperation, we're lost in the storm. And even if you think about our society, which kind of uses the tool of money to make us selfish, So I work and my boss is going to pay me some green paper, but he gets to tell me what to do. And then when I have that green paper, I get to tell everybody else what to do. So we're not really making a contribution out of love for each other. And so money kind of tends to make us selfish. Even that being said, there's a huge amount of cooperation going on. I mean, how many people were involved to produce this? There's the company that makes the glass and the metal and the microchips, millions of people cooperated to make this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And cooperation is so important. So that feeling we get of feeling good to help each other, that's something that's put in there by spirit. Okay. We are literally born to be part of a community, to be connected to others, to work together, to cooperate, to be our brother's keepers. It's in our DNA. It's part of the nature of who we are. And when we follow that in a balanced way, because one's got to take care of themselves, but if we really cooperated as a species and we stop the cutthroat competition, there's a lot of competition because we think we need to compete to survive, even though that's pretty much over with mass manufacturing. We don't need that. But if we were to really cooperate as a species, we would be basically loving the world into the paradise it was always designed to be. And that's going to happen. It's going to take a couple generations, but we're getting better at it. We're getting better cooperating, better at understanding fighting each other is not going to help anybody.
No, it's not. And, look, look, it's important to have discernment. You don't want to just go walk around gleefully and, walk into, open traffic or, gleefully just, be around people negative that energetically suck the life out of you like an energy vampire. But, it is important to have a positive attitude and one that you believe. Do you know what I mean? One that's real to you. And one of the things, and it's interesting, we'll go back to self-love, but I just want to interject this little point. I think it's important is that this has come up before, but there are people out there, and I know you all listening know people, okay, that have a negative interpretation of where we are in this world. And I'm not talking about specific events. I'm not talking about that, but they may have prophetic things or the cataclysmic, whatever. That is just one timeline. There is no time. There's time and not as we know it. So that we are creating it as we go. So I go, no, I don't want that timeline. I really don't want Florida to fall in the ocean because I want to move there. So I'm not really into that. Kind of like Texas too. I don't really, in Mississippi and all that, So I disagree with that. I go, no, I disagree with that. That is not part of my timeline. And the thing is, I think that it's healthy to be able to be self-realized and to be able to consciously create at will. And I choose to do that with people that are in agreement with me. Like, I got a better game. Let's create a utopian world where we help one another. And I don't know how this would work, but wouldn't it be great if we had a society? I know the higher level ET races are supposed to have it where they don't even have money. They just help each other. Don't know really how that would work because I don't know any better. But at least we can start with a place of love and getting back. It all starts with self. just like our spiritual journey. No one can do our spiritual journey. They can't do us. I have a lot of people that will, want a reading and so forth. And I don't get these people anymore. I tell God, I can't do this anymore. And they want me to like, can you do me? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do you. I'll help you. I'll assist you with the divine, but no, you've got to do you. You've got to live your life.
Yeah. If you help your child a little bit with the homework, that's okay. If you're practically doing his homework for him, you're not helping the child, right? I mean, it's kind of the reason why our planet's messed up right now. So, this gets some bizarre stuff, but I know, Tamara, you're online with this, and I know some of the listeners are aware of it. But when a species becomes an ascended species, which we're on our way to doing that, we're not going to destroy ourselves. That was averted. We had the mentality to do it. We had the consciousness, we had the missiles pointed at each other, and from a lot of help from above, that was averted. So we're going to become an ascended species. So what happens is eventually, once you start cooperating and you get peace on Earth, then things really start rolling, and eventually you seed life on another planet. So the Pleiadians seeded life on our planet, and you can see the Pleiades in the night sky, and they're a very benevolent spiritual species. And they could clean up our atmosphere. They could clean up the Earth with their technology in 1 month. Okay, but you know what? We got to do it. They're not going to do our homework for us. We got to learn how to take care of our own room.
It's true.
We got to take care of our own planet. And that love we talk about, and balance, service to self, service to others. There's some problems with taking care of the environment, because we have this idea that nature is a resource, natural resources. It's there to exploit and dominate and change and transform. And really, we're a part of nature, and part of balance with love of self and love of others is love of the planet and love of our mother Gaia. We have to learn to unconditionally love and care for our mother Gaia. I mean, if the Earth dies, we die. It's a pretty big issue.
Right. It's a living thing.
What's that?
It's a living thing.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And actually, what I've heard is Gaia has a group of spirits, just like a human being is a spirit inhabiting a body. So Gaia has a group of intelligent spirits that inhabit it and are working to keep things in balance and so forth. And they're working overtime right now from the damage we're doing. But it's only a matter of time before we learn to live in harmony with each other and the planet. And the world's going to be quite the paradise. I think I've mentioned this before, but and I've heard this from the other side of the veil, that there's the change between now and 150 years from now is going to be so radical. I mean, if you think about the Earth 150 years ago, it was a pretty quiet place. There's no cars or planes or electricity or any of that. It's a radically different place, and it's going to change again. So much so that if an alien were to visit the planet today and look at it and look around and say, oh, you guys are really messed up and you're fighting each other and there's wars everywhere and you're destroying the environment. And if they came back 150 years later, they would have this jaw-dropping experience of, what did these guys do? They really got their act together. They cleaned this place. My God, they've changed. They've made this place into a little paradise. That's how drastic the change is going to be. It's coming. So we just need to have patience through the whole thing. And,
Well, I agree. And not to get too off track, but to kind of validate what, and make a comment about what you were talking about. I feel like they are us. We are their children. They have partial DNA. We have partial alien DNA. Sorry, guys.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a reason why we have 23 chromosomes and most of the animals on the planet have 24. So our DNA has been infused probably with Pleiadian DNA.
Right. It's been messed with. And I don't think I can say it. I don't know if I can say it. So I'm going to post it right here. This right here is what I've been watching. Okay. A lot of, and I just don't know if I can say that on here. I don't know. So there it is. You can read it. And so apparently we have all the technology, advanced technology, just like other planets, but it is not available to mankind, and that we are already working with over 900 alien races. So, what does that mean? I think that it's important to question what we've been told, and not told that, oh, the government. I just mean our whole life, and to do our own personal research and to really, um, we're here for a reason right now. And we should be really appreciative of that and the people around us. And if there's anyone that doesn't support you and love you, you need to get rid of them in your life, because life is, we live forever, but it's kind of short here. So we need to it's our responsibility to have more joy and to put those people in our life. I mean, I can say I don't have any negative anything around me. I'm very careful about that. And so it's a very positive, I have positive people around me, and I monitor that constantly. I mean, what do you think about that? I think it's important to monitor your mental progress and the people that are around you. And when you start getting upset, noticing who that is.
Yeah, and I think it has to do with one's spiritual strength as well. I mean, the way I understand it is once a human being learns to get to a certain spiritual state, you can have somebody, screaming in your face and telling you what an awful person you are and how much, they hate you. And if you're in the right spiritual state, you're going to feel nothing but love and compassion. But most of us are not at that, I'm going to call it a Jesus or Buddha consciousness, something like that, where we're just so strong in our self confidence that we never take anything personally. So, yeah, I mean, we have to protect ourselves while we're growing from being damaged from. There's no such thing as a toxic person. There are human beings who have toxic behavior.
I
And
agree.
if I am not in that state
Right.
of mind where I'm in that Zen state of, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this person's having a hard day, what can I do to make it better? The most
Mm-hmm.
loving thing I can do is disconnect myself from that friendship, because they're just going to drag me down. So if I'm not in the state where I'm strong enough in any confrontation to drag the person up on top of the table, and 99.9% of human beings are not, they're going to pull me off the table. So the best thing I can do is just put my hands and say, no, I'm not grabbing your hand. Stay away from me.
Another thing that I do, David, is that, for example, I noticed early on, not these days, but early on, I would get people that I would read. I'm a psychic medium, so I'd read them, and I would have to go down to their level, wherever that is, anger, sadness, right? And then I would have to pull them up to be able to receive the message energetically, like they would be happier and great. But I would leave the session feeling like complete crap for about 3 or 4 days. And then finally, I realized, because you have to meet someone where they are. That's what Jesus did. He'd walk around, he'd meet them wherever they were. And what does that mean? Well, if they're angry, he'd go, oh, wow, okay, I get it. Yeah, I see why you could feel that way. So I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to do this work if I have to do this. So I project to the universe and say, this is what I need. I need people that have been on a spiritual path and a spiritual journey. And you could say the same thing about friends or people around you. I mean, it still works. And to say, I need people in my life, or that I work with, or that are friends, or whoever, that have been in their spiritual path, that are more from a love vibration, and they want to understand things and create together in a way that's positive. I mean, you can put that. So honestly, I'll only get great people now, and positive people and spiritual leaders, but you can do that with really anything. I only want to attract this, and then you manifest that. And so the same thing, in our life, we can manifest that loving relationship that we want to. We don't want to say what we don't. I did say, not into that. This is what I need. And I put, this is what I want for my heart. And we have to state, in order to get help and intervention, we have to state it. We have to somehow state it, even if it's in our minds. So I think a lot of that, people need to realize they have a choice. They can just say, I need this. This is what I need now. And so, and it's kind of like with you helping others. I want to go back to that story about you helping others, and how you got depleted, because so many light workers get emotionally and energetically depleted. And I want to talk about the balance that you feel is needed. Like, what are the signs of being depleted energetically? What are the signs that you feel like you're not on your own mission, accomplishing the things you need to do here? Because we all need to accomplish something here, right? We need to work together, but we need to honor our life here, and realize that we play a role too. We so many people ignore that. So tell us, when you were helping at the charity point, when you felt that, what were the signs of burnout, and how did you get yourself back?
Okay, so I got involved. A friend of mine and I started a small nonprofit called Steps of Hope Outreach, and after 15 years, it got shut down by the state of California's Neolithic incompetence. But during the time I worked there, I was going down to an orphanage in Mexico a couple times a month. I'd spend my vacation time down there. So if you add it all up, I probably spent about 2 months a year down there, if you added up all the weekends and vacation time and so forth. And I would play with the kids, during certain parts of the day, do a lot of work, go out and do shopping for the food and school supplies and buy propane. Also, I was busy as heck. And then families that had left the orphanage stayed in contact with me, and I helped a number of families over the years. I was also donating to other organizations. I gave away around $250,000, and didn't quite save enough for my own retirement. So now I'm kind of working again. But the burnout signs, I started to get irritated when people asked me for things. I started noticing a pattern. Okay, so like when you're overwhelmingly generous, there's this progression that happens. First, it's met with just immense gratitude. You bring a family food that's struggling financially. Just it's met with immense gratitude. And if you keep doing it, it quickly moves to complacency. And then it moves to expectation, where they're expecting this is kind of your job. And then it moves to almost a resentment or anger, like that you're not doing more, or what have you done for me lately? And I started noticing that and getting bitter. And the other thing that I had going on that was very unhealthy is when you do an act of love for another human being. Okay, so you give somebody a gift or you help them out or whatever. We have this sort of accounting system in our heads sometimes, like, well, I've done this person all these favors, they owe me. Well, no. An act of love is done from your heart. It's not done to get something in return. And actually, this was a Burning Man principle I learned at Burning Man, that you can't trade, you can't buy and sell. You can only give. And so giving is done to grow the soul of the person who's giving. It should never be done with the expectation of any kind of loyalty, or, hey, you guys are going to be there for me when I need you. And what happened is, when I had a crisis, out of all the people I helped, there was only one who was really there for me. Just one person out of the dozens and hundreds of people that I had helped over the years. And some people, and we're talking, I helped one friend first 3 years of college, all bought and paid for. I helped another family for 12 years and bought about half their food. And yeah, just resentment came up, and this idea, well, you don't care about me, so I shouldn't be giving. It was almost like I was giving to make a connection of friendship and community with other people. And so I knew it was going overboard. I was getting tired. I was getting burnt out. My finances were suffering, and it just came to an end. And it actually triggered I don't know whether you call it a nervous breakdown or whatever, but when I put myself back in balance, and I still do things for others now. I mean, I do spiritual consulting for people who go through a spiritual awakening. And I used to charge a fixed amount, but now I just do a donation. So some people, they can't pay, and that's fine, and others do. And that's a better way to do things. I'm helping humanity, but in a balanced way. I'm not giving so much of myself away that I'm harming myself. I finally have a house for the first time in my life. I never owned my own property till I was 56.
Oh, wow.
And I had to bring it back in balance because I had no energy or strength left. I was just exhausted. I mean, that was a big sign. If you're really exhausted, because when you're a giver again, you get swarmed. Everybody knows that, Joe or Susan or whoever, oh, they're a giver, they'll help you out. He's such a nice guy. Well,
Right. Right. Well, it's a balance. And I think this is so important for light workers that are watching this, because I believe most of the people that watch this channel are giving, loving people. I just do. And it very rarely, I don't know if you noticed this, do we get a troll? And if we do, if they just get on here and say something ugly just about somebody, I'm like, bye, see you later, because, it's all about the love.
You're good at shutting that down quickly, though. So they probably don't try.
Well, no, I do. And I'm serious. I'm like, I don't put up with that. If you have a legitimate question about anything, that's cool. You can share a different opinion. That's cool. But if you're just being ugly, no, you know what? Forget it. So, but we really don't. I really don't have, very rarely do I get a troll. They're wonderful people that watch this, and they can identify. I'm sure I can identify with what you're saying. And I think that it goes down to the base core of, why do you give? Well, you give because of love, but then also, do you give because you want to get love? Or do you give because you don't feel like you're worthy? Or do you give because it's just a habit you've gotten into? I'm just saying there's different reasons people do this, or they expect something back. There are people that give, they don't give just to give because they say, oh, I do it just to love. And most people have other motives for that. They may not even realize it. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, for me, like almost every one of those you just mentioned, those were all reasons I was doing what I was doing. Now, there is a good feeling when you do something for somebody else, that mirror neuron or vagus nerve or whatever they call it. But that can be addicting, and light workers have an issue. And the reason light workers have an issue, and the kind of people that would watch a channel like this are going to have the issue of being out of balance and not enough focus on themselves, is because they have empathic abilities. They feel the suffering of others when they see it. Not everybody experiences that. Some, are just totally immune to the suffering of others. Well, I don't care. That's not my problem, right? And because you feel this, I mean, you tend to want to do good. So you're an older soul, you're used to service to humanity, this is one of your main issues on earth. There's a huge demand for it, and it's easy to get caught in the trap of doing too much, going too far. So if you kill the goose that's laying the golden eggs, there's no more golden eggs, you got to take care of that goose, which is you, and you got to have balance in your life. And it hurts sometimes for a light worker who feels the pain of their fellow human being when the fellow human being comes to them and needs something and says, oh, I really need to. It hurts to say no. It's hard for light workers to say no because they know how important our common connection is. They're aware at some either conscious or subconscious level of our common connection. They're aware that when you help that person, you're helping yourself, because really when you look at another human being, you're looking at another little piece of yourself. We're all little facets of God, seeing the rest of God from our unique perspective. Light workers are aware of this. And so it's a trap they easily fall into, and some it can cause some severe problems. So, I think my advice if somebody's struggling with this is to just know that saying no sometimes, that making enough time for yourself, that taking care of yourself, in addition to your service to humanity, whatever you're doing, is just as important. It's critical to continue your service. So don't feel guilty for 1 minute if you need to take a break from other people, or from your charity work, or from your giving, or from your doing favors and always helping other people, or coming to the rescue all the time when the people call you or need you. That's a big one, So don't feel bad about that. You've got to have your own time to rest and recover.
And another way to look at that is a lot of light workers do like to come to the rescue, but if you think about it, or Christians, let's run over there and save them, right? I'm just saying, here's a different way to look at it. We're not meant to do that for everybody. You know, we're not God, we're not Jesus. We do our part, but we are not meant. Sometimes God has other people that step in and help. We're not here just alone. There are other people that do things too, and certain things aren't meant for us. So what I do, if I'm supposed to do something, what I do now, if I ask, I say, should I do this? And I get a yes or a no. I do. I get a yes, like, yes, you know, like I get a positive feeling, or I'll go no. Now, obviously, that can change. You know, something that's right now may not be right for later. But the problem I think that I have is I have this obsessive personality. I know this is shock to a lot of people, and so I get really excited about things, and I get on a roll, and so you know, I like learning a lot. I like reading and looking at things, and so I need to have time where I just do zero nothing, but I want to justify that. And some people say this is Syrian trait because they have to be they're really into bit productivity, but it's something. It's like really ingrained in me. Like I've got to always be doing something, even if it's for myself, and versus just sitting in solitude. And because I get bored easily, but and I think it's part of it's also our society is that our worth is measured by our productivity or by our that thing that's that paper money again. And so and that's not it at all. Our soul being, our presence is measured. As first of all, it's not measured, and if it was, it would be based on energy and a love flow. It's like, and how kind we are to ourselves and others. And so I think it's all about energy and the flow of energy, and also the balance of energy. But I will tell you that it is. I think you're spot on, and a lot of people might not want to hear it. And you were talking about the process of helping people. And if you help someone too much and where the balance is off, I think you're spot on about there's gratitude at first, like, thank you, oh my God. And then there's complacency, like, yeah, well, okay. And then when are you going to give me some more of that? You know, and then there's also, then it's resentment. And I think the resentment comes from this. When people get out of balance, when you're giving more, right? If you give too much to someone, they resent it. So that's why I believe in charging. Because if you just gave someone free, they're like, well, where's more free stuff? And then they resent it because they know at a deep level they're out of balance. Now, it doesn't have to be money. You know, you could mow their yard and they could cook you dinner. You know, I mean, there could be, but people get upset when they're not in balance. Haven't you ever done a lot for someone and they won't call you back? It's because they're avoiding you because they feel out of balance. So I allow people to put in their share of what they want. And I ask them up front, what would you like from this? Or what is a good balance for you? Ask right up front, even with business deals. What is a good balance for you? Now, they may say something, you're like, well, that don't work for me. You know, you may have to work on that, but that people start acting weird when they get out of balance, when they feel like someone has given them too much. And you've probably, you know, met people that like, no, I don't want to owe them anything. No, I'd rather just pay for it. And that's all that is. So I think it's good to allow people to get into, you know, what do you feel is fair? What would you like to do? And that way, people like to contribute unless they're like a sociopath, which is a different topic altogether. But I think that's what it is. It's very odd.
Yeah, I've noticed that. And I've noticed another thing with givers. There's these people who give. And then when somebody wants to give them a gift, oh no, I couldn't take that. I couldn't accept
Exactly.
that.
Take it. You
Well,
need
what
to
are you
take it.
telling the universe when you reject a gift? You're saying, I'm not worthy to receive good gifts from others, you know? So when you deny a gift from another human being that they offer you, there's two things going on. You deny them the growth from an act of love, of giving,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
then you deny yourself the gift of what you've put out energetically. You've given and given and given. I mean, one of the things that happened, and I don't recall if we mentioned this on the last tea with Tamara, but I had been looking for a house and I was struggling getting the money together, and Bank of Dad came through. But one of the children, who is now full grown woman with her own family and children, from the orphanage, contacted me just to see how I was doing, and I told her what was going on, and she offered to give me one of her properties in Mexico. Offered to give it to me.
Okay.
And when you're generous, it will come back to you.
Yeah.
And see that as, this is what I put out there. Don't never reject a gift. So, I mean, I
Right.
rejected it in that
You're exactly
instance because I didn't want to live in Mexico, but it was still a wonderful, beautiful thing to see, the universe saying, "Hey, you gave, and now this is
very
what
good.
happens." You reap what you sow, right?
Very
So.
good point. I've got a little example of that. You know how we have little things that we refer to and we kind of catalog it. Years ago, maybe 8 years ago, but 9 years, something like this. I was in New York, and I I don't know what I was thinking. So I decided I was going to contact this. It was a very big nightclub, and it wasn't New York City. It was outside of it, but it was very posh. Okay.
Mhm.
Like everything was white leather. It was very nice. So I don't know. I got in my head. I knew I was going to New York to do another medium demonstration show. And it was with a friend of mine who was a medium. And I was kind of showing her how to do things at the time. Now she does them herself regularly. But anyway, so I contacted this person. I kind of got to be somewhat friends with the club owner, who was not a dirtbag. I know it says club owner. He was a family man. He was a really proper, really sweet Jewish fella, very loving person, And it was funny because I had asked beforehand to be associated with decent, nice people. He was wonderful, and he had a great family and all this. So I really liked him. Okay.
Mhm.
So I read him. His grandfather came through and all these different things. And it was really beautiful. Then the grandmother, they raised him. It was so precious. And I felt like I got to know him more as a person. So when he said, well, why don't you come up and do like a little show for the staff and do things? I said, okay. And it was, very fancy and stuff. And so the grandfather told me to get, comics, funny papers. Remember the funny papers in the newspaper?
Mhm.
I don't even know if you can find those anymore. But anyway, he said, I want you to go buy this thing. So I'm at Hobby Lobby, and I'm looking for a B-52 bomber kind of thing, because he was in the war, right?
Mhm.
And I was going through, and I remember at the time, it was so funny. My husband was calling, dinner's about ready. What are you doing? I don't know. Spirit's trying to show me which B-52 bomber to buy. And it was a model plane. I had to buy this model plane. And I'm like, I wasn't sure why, but I'm very compliant with Spirit people. And so especially if they're loving, and I only work with the higher realms. Anyway, he's like, no, not that one, that one. So I picked this thing. I wrap it in funny paper. He said, try to find shoestring and tie it with shoestring. So I go to this thing, New York, get on the plane, pack this thing, and I see him. It's very fancy. Like they had a huge kitchen. They had like 4-course meals. They had like a green room to like die for, and like the TV, the intercom. It was like posh. Okay. So I bring this thing to him. And he's like, oh my God, my granddaddy used to fly that. This is how he wrapped gifts, because they didn't have much money. And it was so sweet. He said, I tell you what, can you stay as my guest? And I want to, tonight I think they had, oh gosh, it was a comedian, John, not Lithgow, John, kind of dark hair, kind of heavy set guy. I can't think of his name, but anyway, very funny fella. He said you could stay for him and dinner and everything. And we're dinner drinks. It would have been like, a big to do. And I said, oh, that is so nice of you. I went, yeah, it sounds great, because he was trying to put in his exchange. He could do it. He owned the place. He owned the kitchen. It wasn't like he, what I mean? It was like in his favor to be able to offer that. I said, that sounds wonderful. And my friend said, no, I will not take that from you. So I'm like, what the hell do we have to do? We're going to go through a drive-through and eat, through, some kind of fast food. So we left. And then he said, well, can I at least take your bags to the car? I said, that'd be very nice of you. It'd be very kind. Thank you. And she got mad and she goes, no, I will not. Well, I looked at his face. She insulted him. So sometimes we don't receive things from people they're excited to do for us. It hurt his feelings. And I
Yeah.
feel like it damaged my relationship. And And even though the person didn't mean to be this way, afterwards I was like, no, I'm only doing these things with myself. No, because it really, I could see his spirit. He was so hurt that he couldn't give me something back. He wanted to, and even just carrying the bags, and it just broke my heart when I saw his face. And we have to remember other people want to do nice things too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember a story. This was decades ago, and I can't remember who told it to me, but they had this job going door to door. We don't do door to door things anymore because we have the internet, right? So, but back in the day, things were done door to door. They sold vacuum cleaners door to door, encyclopedias. So he went door to door, and I can't remember what he was promoting, but his company gave him these silver dollars back when we had the silver dollar coins that were still in circulation. And he was told, give one of these to each. They selected, certain clientele, and they said, give one of these to each of them just as a thanks. And then he went into his little sales pitch spiel. And he says it was really difficult because he was giving these silver dollars away, and people were suspicious. They didn't want to take them. They just, well, what are you doing here? And that's tough when you reject somebody's gift, no matter what the circumstances is, because a gift is something that should be easy to give away. There's so many people in need. And so for another person to reject a gift, that's painful. It's like, I'm such a horrible person, or you don't trust me so much that you won't even take a gift from me. That's, of course it's hurtful.
It's true. And I think it's a different way of looking at it. So the give and the flow, the giving and receiving has to be a flow. So I think that only we can monitor that. I mean, we looked at, so what would be a give and a flow? So, if we're giving back and doing a lot of things too, obviously, if you have a paid job, you're still giving your time. It's still your time, whether you're paid or not. And then you think, well, what is giving? So like I've mentioned before with this channel, I love doing it. I love helping people. I think it's great. I'm actually paying to have this channel. Whatever money I'm making, this is crazy. But the thing is, all that's good and I enjoy it. However, when I start feeling cranky and tired and I'm like, oh, I got to do this because I'm exhausted, then I'm like, okay, I've got to give back to me. I need to do something fun. I've got to give back. I need to go and sit outside in nature. I need to, do something I want to do, either project, if I want to work on a creative project, or for myself. I had this beautiful, I'll have to show you at some point, this beautiful feather, make these like sage things, like Native American.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really gorgeous. I don't know how I know how to make them. I just make them. I don't know. And so they're absolutely amazing. And I'll find feathers in the yard. So I'm such an oddball. And so I find like hawk feathers in the yard and I make these. I mean, they look like a queen's thing. They're gorgeous. And I got to bling them out. They're beautiful. So I can use it for sage and so forth. And holy water's better, but I like the way sage smells. It's very earthy. I like it. But anyway, so these are things that I like doing that I also like. I mean, it's just something for myself, but I'll have pants. I'm short. Instead of taking it to someone, I'll have clay pin it and I hem them. I hem my own stuff. Or if something's like too big, I'll take it in. I'll take it in on my sewing machine. These are little projects, but I feel like, I saved 15 and 12. I've saved $75. I get all excited when I get to do my own mending. And so these are little things that when I do things for myself, or even read certain books that I want to get under my belt that I need to do, it makes me feel that I'm accomplishing something for myself. So I can usually feel the imbalance when I'm usually tired and cranky, and I can feel it. I can feel it within myself. It's a feeling of dread, and it's nothing personal. It's just it's just basically time off. And I think that everyone can feel that, whether they're working too hard at the office or whatever they're doing, working too hard at the PTA, whatever their thing is, when they start feeling that sense of, I just need downtime, that's only up to us to monitor, whether we're doing charity work or going to a job. It doesn't really matter. It's still time in your day. And we need that break.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, there's times I feel like I'm stressed out. Oh my gosh, I got to do this. Well, our emotions, that's our spiritual guide, right? It's trying to tell us, what's good and what's not. And so many human beings are doing things they don't want to do. They're in relationships they don't want to be in anymore, or in a job they don't want to be in.
You're
And
right.
that can eat you up inside in terms of balance. Or they're being asked to do so much, like, oh, this person's asking me that. Well, your emotions are a guide. If you're feeling drained and exhausted, well, that's your guide. That's spirit telling you need to take a break, take some time for yourself, and that's an important thing. And that's something I'm still struggling with. I recently,
Mhm.
when I got a job, I worked for the post office one day, and I just felt horrible about it. I felt horrible before the job
Right.
started. I was dreading it. I got into the orientation, and I felt even worse. And I'm ignoring my emotions. Well, it wasn't for me, you know, and I shouldn't have been ignoring my emotions. So, like, if your emotions are telling you you're burnt out and you've gone too far, and you need to take a break,
Right.
um, it's time, no
Right.
matter who you think it's going to hurt. And one of the things that shocked me is, if you help somebody too much, you can make them lazy. It's not good for them, right? So I lift weights, and if the person you have spotting you
Oh my
lifts too much on the bar, you're not exercising your muscles. It's actually going to weaken you. They're not helping you.
goodness. That's
So, for instance,
true.
this friend of mine, I was helping with college tuition after 3 years, and I was getting to the end of my rope in helping others. I'm back in balance now, but for a while I was quite selfish for a few years. I got to the end of that, and I was really worried that this friend was just going to drop out, couldn't make it. It's in Mexico. It's really hard and they were at an expensive university. I thought, this person's never going to make it. Never. They got a job within a month and was working and got through and graduated, a couple of years later. So often, we think, oh, if I don't rescue them, they're done for. No, okay. The guys up there who are helping us, our guides, if you can't come to the rescue and they really need to be rescued, they actually need help, but you can't, they're going to find somebody else to do it. They're not going to leave them out in the cold.
That's true.
So, God doesn't have just one helper. He's got a couple of billion down here. So,
No, you're
the other person's going to be okay. They're going to survive.
exactly. And I think that's why so many light workers think it's on them. Why does it have to be them? I mean, why do you? And the other thing is, we're not responsible for the outcome of other people. I don't care if you're married to someone or they're your partner. You are not even kids. Your kids. You have kids. It's not. We're not responsible. I mean, we do what we can to be helpful and loving, but ultimately, everyone is responsible for themselves. So we can't take on the entire burden. They have to have responsibility as well on things. And so I see that too with light workers. They take on the beingness of another person, and you can't do that. And I think this is where boundaries come into play. We didn't talk about the B word, boundaries, but it's so important. And so the boundaries might be, look, I'll do this. I love you. And I will, do this, but I can't do that. That's too much on me, but I can give you, $50 or whatever. I'm just making something up. But what I'm saying is you put in your boundaries with people, because sometimes the tendency might be they'll take advantage especially if they're lazy. If I find out someone lazy and they're not helping themselves, I'm going to be honest. I usually dump them. I mean, like a hot potato. Because the thing is, there are too many people in this world that are trying really hard, that are so full of love, that if someone is a user like that, and there's so many people that need help, I just eliminate all contact immediately, because this is boundaries.
Yeah, and the other good thing is a light worker, especially like many of the people watching this, we're all psychic. We all have psychic abilities.
Of
It's just a
course.
matter of getting to know how to use them. And so you can use your intuition. And a lot of people watch, the kind of people that would watch this channel, it's going to be an easier deal to get in touch with that intuition. And you can use that when somebody's asking for something, dear spirit inside, do I need to help this person? I
Yeah.
recall I was with a couple of friends of mine in a wealthy area of Orange County, California. And there was this woman sitting there on the side of the road, looked very poor. She was sitting there with a little, covering over her head, and just looked very dejected and poor. And I looked at her and I thought to myself, she's a scammer. And I said it out loud to my friends. I said, she's a scammer. And they said, oh yeah, don't you know about her? She was on the news. She's got a Mercedes and a big house, and she, gets her money by doing this.
Oh, dear
So
God.
you can use your discernment. Yeah.
A discernment. My brother told me, which he's very kind of straight ahead person. He just, he didn't elaborate anything. He said he found out accidentally there is a guy in his neighborhood. He just has a regular, middle class neighborhood, but there's a guy in there and he has this brand new big truck and he will go, I don't know where he goes, but somewhere in the city, he'll park the truck somewhere else, walk and carry signs for being homeless. And that's how he makes his money to pay for himself. Said he's told him he makes over $100,000 begging for money. And I'm going, and there's nothing wrong with him. And so he's like conning people basically. And I had never heard of anything like this in my life. I'm going, that's shameful. It's not like, you know what I mean? I mean, there's nothing wrong with him. He's like, he thinks he's getting ahead. So, here's the thing. If someone says, what's the old adage? Like if I tell you, here, take this tissue. Why? You don't need to take it. You could say, no, I'm not touching it. I'm not going to take it. We allow things that happen in our lives. So it's important for us to be a guard around our energy and around, if other people want to have a different reality, but this is about self-love, having boundaries for ourselves. I have family members. I have certain ones I have to put boundaries in. Because I know there's a mechanism or a pattern. And so in order to interrupt that pattern, I put certain precautions in so a situation doesn't occur.
Yeah. And, people are smart. You can find ways to work around that. If there's somebody where it's unavoidable. I used to have a friend who always would ask me my political opinion on something because they knew it was different than theirs. And then when I answered, start arguing with me about it. And I very quickly learned when they said, what's your opinion? I talk about, so what's your opinion on this? And I'd say, no, it's just different than yours. Well, what? And then just clam up. That's it. Anything you have to do to keep the peace and avoid the chaos and the drama, I'm all for it.
Right. Or you could easily just say, yeah, I just don't, you could just tell someone, I really don't want to talk about that. Right. I mean, I think that it's a gift to be giving to others of yourself. That is the ultimate gift. But that doesn't mean that we have to tell everybody everything. Why do we need to tell, especially someone if they're not in your court? Why do we need to tell them, disclose information about ourselves? So this is back to, I think relationships are sacred. I think we're sacred. And I think that we should look at ourselves as not with overimportance, but with gratitude and be kinder to ourselves because who's going to do that for us? And the other thing, I thought it was a great example with the post office. I think, it's funny. I hear you say that. I think you're like, oh, I'm humbled. I'll just go do this thing. It's not a big deal. Whatever. Let me try it out. And what it is that reality is that, you were humble enough, but the fact is it's not for you. There's other things that are set for you that better fit. So nothing against people at the post office, but there's certain things in life we're not meant to do. And we will literally get a block on that. If we're not meant to do it, we will get a big dread. We'll get a block. And even certain people we're not supposed to be around. We'll get a block on it or a dread. And I think we need to listen to that because that's part of our self-love because we have a big team around us, spiritual team trying to help us out. But if we don't listen to that in our inner self, then it really doesn't do any good.
Exactly. And another thing with the self-love that I have to work on a lot is the self-talk. And a lot of people aren't really even consciously aware of the self-talk.
Oh, yeah.
And the example I like to use is imagine if you're a single person and you meet somebody online and you decide to go meet in a coffee shop. And after 5 minutes, the person says, yeah, I'm sorry. I just don't think you're for me and leaves.
Oh,
and so
wow.
you go home, you're all upset. you call your best friend, and your best friend says, well, of course the person left. Look at you. You're not very attractive. You're not that intelligent. You're a poor conversationalist. You're kind of sloppy the way you dress. Something's wrong with you. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left, or she wouldn't have left after 5 minutes. Obviously, something's wrong. I mean, 5 minutes? Geez, you can't hold somebody's attention. Of course. What are you complaining to me about it? Well, what kind of friend is that? That's not a very good friend. But it wasn't a friend saying that. That's what the person's telling themselves, you know. And it
Wow.
might have been something completely different. I mean, I had one back when I was dating. There was one woman who was a wonderful woman, and she, I told her I wasn't interested, and she was all upset. You know, oh, I'm unattractive. And I said, no, you're very attractive, but she finally kept pressuring me. Why? I'm like, you
Yeah.
look a lot like my mother, you know. So it was just weirding me out. Her
My,
mannerisms, the way she talked, even her name was the same name as my
oh,
mom.
that's so weird. I couldn't do that. So did she get it when you said it?
She kind of got it and felt a little better. Yeah. But I mean, there's all sorts of reasons, but we take it on ourselves. We tend to have that
That is
negative talk. You know, I can't get a job. Well, you know, I'm just a loser. Well, maybe it's because all the jobs you've looked at so far are not the ones you're supposed to get. I mean, I
right.
kept pressuring myself to get a job. And I had this self-talk of, well, you know, I'm just not, I don't have the worth, you know, I don't have marketable skills. Well, the reason I wasn't getting a job is because the time wasn't right. And I was waiting for this other consulting job to kind of blossom, which it's starting to now. And so I was trying to push something before it's time. So sometimes it's just a matter of being patient. But we really got to watch the self-talk, because whether it's a matter of being rejected by somebody, or being patient, or not having the things we want in life, there's a lot of self-talk. You know, I just, you know, I don't deserve it. Yeah, even right from the beginning, my very first near-death experience, the whole reason I got into this years ago is because I was laying in bed. I'd been prayed for by churches for this tendonitis I had, hundreds of people. And I came to the conclusion that, yeah, either God doesn't exist or he doesn't like me. I'm not a good Christian. He's the son you know, that he's embarrassed of, you know. I don't want this guy. I took it all on me, right?
That's
Yeah, you got to
terrible.
watch that self-talk. Yeah. And it was
Wow.
the exact opposite. They'd been with me the whole time, and they deeply care. I mean, anytime there's a human being in distress who's crying or in anguish or has just hopelessness and feels like they can't go on and they think they're alone, you are not alone in that time. You have angels and support and the hand of God
Mhm.
holding you while you cry the whole time. You're never
It's
alone
so
down here.
beautiful.
They love us so much. They
That
really
is
do.
that is so beautiful. And I think that's a beautiful place to end off, because I agree with you so much. And with you having your book, God Took My Clothes, everybody get that. Where you have heard over 700 NDE testimonies, and talk with many more than that, as far as NDEers, that we really aren't alone. Just because we can't see that, our home is not here. You know, it's a more of a heavenly realm. And so we're sent here not to fail, but we're sent here to succeed with a
Mm.
team of angelic beings and guides and so forth. So we are not alone. We just have to listen to the signs and look around us, and know that we're loved. And we can choose to look at the glass half full or half empty. But when we look, the thing about our hearts, if you look at your heart never lies. The heart wants what the
Mm.
heart wants. And the heart probably told you the post office was not for you, but your brain said, I can do this for a little bit. It's so convenient. And so we should always go with our heart, because that's why we're here. And we're really supposed to teach other people to follow their own heart. And how can we do that if we're not doing it ourselves? So, oh, this is so sweet. Adriana said, you just raised my vibration 100-fold. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Adriana.
That is so sweet. And it's true. We are not alone. And it may feel like we all have dark moments, but that also, we learn from those times, and we persevere, and we get through it. We reflect upon these horrible times, sometimes as almost like battle wounds, and what we learn from it. And this is unfortunately how we learn. If everything was perky and wonderful, we wouldn't learn on planet Earth. We wouldn't learn from we have to have controversy. We have to have comparisons. And this is how we learn. So when we do have the sweet, beautiful nectar of life, that we appreciate it. So
Yeah, you hit on a good point there. If you were a billionaire, I mean, ask yourself this, listeners, if you had $1 billion, how many people would get lazy? How many would stop making the contribution to humanity they're making now? Yeah.
a lot
So
do.
challenges make us stronger, right? You run a marathon, you get stronger. You climb a mountain, you get stronger.
That's true.
We're exercising our spiritual muscles down here with the fear, love, duality.
And how many? Oh, sorry, David. And how many people that are very wealthy are miserable?
Oh yeah,
a lot. I'm
oh
not
yeah.
saying you need to be poor to be happy either, but I'm saying that that's really not what it's about. So we do need money to survive, but honestly, you don't need that much if you're crafty. You really don't. Ever since they have the dollar stores.
Life's been easy now.
Goodwill, you don't really, I mean,
all right. So my wife Lydia loves dollar stores. She's a big fan of the dollar stores. So. Yeah,
I'm amazed at it. $1,
Yeah, it's amazing what they can sell for $1. It makes me suspicious. Something's up with that. How can you be selling stuff? But I've seen study after study. When I tried to research what makes you happy, when I was depressed, I took the engineer's view, and I'm like, I'm just going to research what makes people happy. And I found quite a few studies where they show that once you have the basic necessities met, food, clothing, housing, transportation, medical care, more money doesn't make you happier. In fact, it can often make you a little more stressed out, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, it's not all about money. There are things that make the soul joyful, and it rarely has to do with money.
Yeah, I would say, it's really simple. It's really good relationships. It's how you feel about yourself. Sometimes your health can bum you out. So being healthy can make you feel good. If you feel good, literally feel good, laughter, following your heart, having great relationships are usually just simple things. And these are things that we can control, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know if someone's toxic. It's funny. Now I have my husband doing it with me. Okay, you've been acting really strange around this person. And I'm like, really? And then I'll start thinking, I'm like, wow, every time they do contact, they are kind of negative. So he's even looking like he's trying to even protect my energy. It's so cute. So, but it's really simple. They could be actually anybody. And it doesn't mean you need to get rid of them. Sometimes you just need to put in some slight measures, for boundaries and so forth. And it's fine. I have certain family members that they'll want to talk late at night, and that's when I don't talk. I mean, I need this downtime. So I don't, unless it's an emergency, I don't get the phone. So yeah, the money is a distraction. That is it, as well as something we need, but it is also a distraction. And I think so many people are busy chasing it. And yeah, we do need it for things, but to what end? That's really just absolutely not why we're here. So getting back to self-love, it really is about being kind to ourselves and not comparing ourselves to what this world thinks we should be, because this world, I don't know if anyone's noticed, it's a little broken. And so I got to be
dysfunctional. What society thinks you should be is a highly dysfunctional concept.
But completely nuts on a bunch of pharmaceuticals to control all.
Yeah, exactly.
So what about this? What about if we just decided to be we've learned the past couple of years, be a little bit more simple with things, enjoy the simple things, be kinder to ourselves. If we haven't learned anything else these last couple of years, it should be that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have lost with technology a lot of the simple joys in life that are really good for us spiritually, emotionally, and physically. I tell people, if you're stressed out, turn off that news. Human being isn't meant to take on the chaos and suffering of an entire planet. Don't do that. Put your cell phone away and then go out in nature with a good friend and take a walk. No cell phone. And when's the last time people did that? I've got to force myself to do it. And those things are really good for us to slow down. We have a society that is just running on overdrive. We are way too busy. And if anybody living in the big city, it comes out in the way we drive, right? Super aggressive. And that's not good for us. It's not good for us to be that aggressive. You know, you see these presidents that age 20 years in 4 or 8 years of office. Well, stress ages you faster. So the opposite,
Yes.
a state of joy and peace actually extends your life. You can extend your
True.
life by just slowing down and taking it easy, and, you know, not taking on so many projects and tasks or being involved in so many things. The world's going to survive without your help. It
Well,
really is. Okay. It needs you, and it needs a healthy amount of contribution, but it doesn't need you to self-sacrifice, right? So
it is. It's true. Self-sacrifice versus self-love. So
yeah.
this is something that we'll periodically bring up because I think it's important for light workers. But thank you so much for your time today, David. You're phenomenal. I love how you share your heart willingly with other people. And you know, any of these tea with Tamaras, we don't plan anything we're going to say. I had somewhat of a mild topic. We just get on here. We didn't plan the nude people in the art studio. I mean, we just talk,
Totally
you know.
unplanned.
We didn't plan that. We
Didn't
don't
mean
plan
to make
it.
it X-rated for anybody listening. Not our intention.
That and the Palladians don't really go to. But anyway, whatever comes up just comes up. So hopefully next time you will join us in a couple weeks for Tea with Tamara, and you know, write your questions. And also, if you have anything you want us to cover and talk about, send it to info@seekingheavenshow.com. That's info@seekingheavenshow.com. And we'll take up your topic, something really bothering you. And it's kind of like, I don't know, I don't really have an answer for it. We'll throw it out there and we'll have a discussion. So you are welcome. Those of you watching, Adriana, thank you so much for watching. And then also remember to watch tomorrow, which is Wisdom Wednesday. And that will be Gaslighting 103. It's a whole series. It's free. And they're very short. They're usually around 15 minutes, give or take. So enjoy that. And thank everybody for watching, and see you in a couple weeks. And thank you, Dave, for sharing just a part of who you are.
It was delightful to be here with you on the show, and I'm looking forward to our next one. And thank you to all the listeners. Keep up the good fight.
Yes, keep up the good fight, light workers. Take care, and much love to everybody. Bye.
Oh, okay.